Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Scales of Justice. I'm District Attorney Tim Cruz, and I'm the District Attorney of Plymouth County. Joining me today are my special guests, Assistant District Attorney Kristen Stone and Massachusetts State Police Trooper Frank Driscoll. Kristen Stone is an Assistant District Attorney of my office who has worked there for 11 years. She currently prosecutes all types of cases in Brockton Superior Court and is our point person in the Office of Computer-Related Criminal Issues and Prosecutions. She regularly goes into the schools and speaks with middle and high school age students about cybersense, how to use their digital devices and services safely. Kristen also speaks to adults and parent groups in the community about the same issues, focusing on keeping our kids safe. Frank Driscoll is a trooper with the Massachusetts State Police. He is currently assigned to the Plymouth County District Attorney's Detective Unit. His duties include, but are not limited to, the investigation of various major crimes, including homicides, rapes, and other violent crimes. In addition, he also investigates crimes involving the use of computers. Frank's an active member of the HTCIA, the High Technology Crime Investigation Association, which is an international association whose membership includes corporate security specialists and federal and local law enforcement officers concentrating in the area of high-tech crime. Today's topics are cybercrime and computer forensics. Mobile devices such as iPhones, iPod Touch, smartphones, tablets, and smart TVs have become extremely popular. These devices provide all of us with a great way to keep in touch with our family and friends. They enable us to access the internet as well as our social media pages, email, and text messages. However, while they're linked to the internet, they provide a new array of dangers that perpetrators use to lure unsuspecting victims into their web. Today, we will discuss the various types of computer crimes that involve our school-age children, as well as other types of cybercrime that you should be aware of. We'll also touch upon how we in law enforcement are able to use computer forensics to help investigate these crimes. So the first question I have, Kristen, is what is cybercrime?
Well, essentially, cybercrime is just as it sounds. It's criminal activity or criminal behavior that involves the use or is perpetrated through the use of the internet, a computer system, or computer technology.
What cybercrimes are really impacting the school-age population?
The most common types of cybercrime that we see coming from the school-age population are behaviors that involve bullying or cyberbullying, threats, and sexting. The schools have their response to those behaviors that might include things like suspension or expulsion, but if it rises to the criminal level, then clearly the district attorney's office, local law enforcement, in conjunction with the district attorney's office, would get involved.
Why are so many kids engaging in these behaviors?
Most of the kids are engaging in this kind of behavior, particularly bullying and cyberbullying or conveying a threat, because they either think it's funny, so they're sort of amusing themselves with this, but in the end, the consequences that come back to him are anything but funny. They can find themselves in a whole host of trouble. But I think they also have a false sense of freedom to engage in those behaviors because they feel that they're anonymous, that they will not be identified as the perpetrator of that particular act, text, or communication using sort of the cyber world. They sort of are emboldened. They have this false courage to say things that they would never say face to face, and they believe that there will be no consequence to them for doing that because they're anonymous. And most of the apps that the kids are using these days are apps that claim to be anonymous, sort of fostering that sense of no one will find out who you are, say whatever you want to say.
And Frank, are they really anonymous?
No, I mean, they believe they are on these particular apps because they're in a bedroom, nobody sees them, they're on their device, nobody knows who they are, and they think that, but they're not anonymous to law enforcement. If you're on the internet, we're able through legal means to find out who either posted that, said that, emailed that, so it's nowhere near anonymous.
Which is really important, especially if somebody's threatening somebody. If somebody assumes that they can get away with threatening somebody, safety, their children, their personal liberties, it's so important for law enforcement to have the ability to get in and find out who are the people that are communicating that. And I know many times you end up, in the course of your investigations, going to a variety of different places, and lots of times it may be a small school-age kid that's doing some of these issues and really doesn't understand the gravity of the situation that he's facing.
Right.
Is it the same sort of thinking when they're talking about sexting?
No, sexting is a little different. I don't think it's that anonymity that encourages that. That's actually more of a personal connection that involves typically a dating relationship between oftentimes very young kids, 7th grade, 8th grade. And what happens, the typical scenario is that a young woman will take an image of herself in some state of nudity and send it, either attach it to a text, maybe an email, to her boyfriend of the time or of the day. And it gets perpetuated because the boyfriend opens it and sends it to all his friends, whether it's his whole address book of his phone or just a couple of friends, but he ends up forwarding it to them. And unfortunately, this young girl, in most instances, is under 18, and so that image is child pornography. And when she's taking it, it's child pornography. When she's sending it to her boyfriend, she's disseminating or sending child pornography. And when he sends it all to his friends, he's disseminating or sending child pornography. And those are incredibly serious statutes, as we all know, for someone to be charged with for doing behavior that they might not even realize is that serious. And when I speak to the student groups, I try to emphasize that these are very serious statutes that exist, and that you don't want to be somebody who's being charged with that because you were exercising poor judgment or just weren't thinking.
And plus, if you're convicted of those crimes, you are a sex offender.
That's right.
And then would have to register with the Sexual Offender Review Board. So the parameters are out there. The kids have no idea, most times, what they're doing.
That's correct.
And I think that even if you got phones, Frank, and wiped images clean, is there a way for you guys to get in there and find out what was there?
Yeah, we can do stuff like that. We can find out what was, in a sexting type case, we try to get all the devices that we believe have access to that image. Even if they delete it, we can still typically get that image back. But the issue is sometimes if we don't always get all the devices. So somebody sends it to his brother who's in college, sends it to his roommate. The roommate sends it to his brother in California. That's out of our reach. We don't know the true scope of the investigation, and we never get those images back. So then years down the road, when we do a child pornography investigation, we'll find those images on one of the bad guys' computers. And then we know that girl was actually a real victim based on a relationship that happened a few years ago.
And I think one of the things the young girl doesn't consider, and I don't mean to make it sound like that's the only scenario. This is just as much against the law if a boy's taking that image and sending it to his girlfriend, or they're exchanging the photos. But oftentimes the scenario we get is that a young girl has done it and sent it to her boyfriend. I don't think she's considering that once she sends it to him, he's then in possession of that, essentially to do whatever he might do with it. And even if phones are collected, you don't know whether he's already made a personal copy or one of those other people that he sent it to has made a personal copy of that. And then they also don't consider that at some point maybe they won't be dating anymore, and this will now be an ex-boyfriend who has that image. And we've run up to scenarios where the boyfriend in possession of that image starts to essentially insist that the girl do certain things, or he'll release that image because he's now in possession of it. And in one scenario, the image was emailed to the young girl's father. So they sort of have a name for that. They call it sextortion, because now you're in possession of that sensitive photo and you're trying to engage someone to do something, or you'll release it. So I just try to emphasize that all of these consequences can be avoided if you just don't take the picture in the first place.
Right.
That's what I try to tell them. Just don't take it in the first place.
Is there anything a parent can do to try to prevent, as best as they can, in teaching their kids what to do with their phones and their camera capabilities? Is there anything they can do to prevent these sort of things from happening?
Well, we're parents. You feel for other parents because you can't be there constantly with your children. And that idea of the mobility of the devices, they're out of your sight a lot of times when they have these devices. So reinforcing for them these consequences, making sure the kids understand what's at stake. And I think a real easy one is just not to let your child take that device with them up to their room, to bed. there's really nothing good that's going to happen after bedtime on some device. You know, I like to joke around, like, buy them an alarm clock. You know, they don't need that phone to be their alarm. Put the device on the kitchen counter, let them go to bed. They shouldn't have it up there. A lot of the cases that we see involve things that are happening when the child's gone to bed.
If something does happen, what should a parent do?
I think, so you're saying, like, if they've been confronted, or somebody says, hey, I have an image of this, and
what should they do?
Right, so what they should do is try to associate, like, so if somebody texts them and says, hey, I have an image of you, I'm going to send it to your father, if you don't give me $500 or do whatever, you'll send me another picture. So what they have to do is get any emails, IDs, IP addresses, anything associated with that account that's contacted them that they can find. In addition, if they can print it out, maybe take a screenshot of it. You know, you snap a picture of your screen, of the device, the phone, even the computer. They have applications that do that as well. Print it out and quickly notify law enforcement. I mean, I understand it's an embarrassing situation for a lot of people, but the longer you wait, the harder it is to track down some of this information. So time is of the essence in these types of investigations.
Okay, great. This looks like it's going to be a good time for us to take a break. When we come back, I'd like to discuss other kinds of computer crimes that are being committed and touch upon computer forensics. So thank you for joining us with Scales of Justice, and we'll be right back.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it. Time to wake up.
I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
Don't forget, you've got a job to do today.
Hey, Mom. I got the job. Thanks.
Got the job. Welcome aboard.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does.
And like that, you're a job creator.
Welcome back to the Scales of Justice. Joining me today is Assistant District Attorney Kristen Stone and Massachusetts State Police Detective Frank Driscoll. I'm District Attorney Tim Cruz, your host for this show. Before the break, we were discussing cybercrime as it pertained to school-age children. What other types of computer crime are being committed?
One of the big ones we're seeing now is the cyber stalking, which is kind of leads to like domestic violence type issues. So if someone breaks up or somebody gets divorced, typically it's the boyfriend, unfortunately, but some of the females do it as well, where they would set up a fake dating website, for their ex. They set up a fake Craigslist ad for their ex and put the phone number in there, so the ex constantly gets phone calls. In some instances, they put the address so that the ex has all these strangers showing up at the house for whatever they put in the advertisement. You know, there's a lot of that going on as far as like it's similar to cyberbullying, but it's for the domestic violence type stuff.
And that can be incredibly dangerous, just throwing people's information, especially their addresses, on Craigslist.
Absolutely.
I mean, somebody just showing up at your house, randomly at your house, that's incredibly dangerous. And I think maybe sometimes these people that are doing that in their fit of jealousy or whatever it may be don't understand the danger they're putting people in by just throwing the name out there blindly.
Right, especially with the person going to the house expecting
Yeah.
something, and the person on the other end not having any idea what's about to happen.
What other kind of crimes are there, Kristen?
On both the state and the federal level, there's been sort of an increased use of the internet for human trafficking purposes, and human trafficking is essentially the forced labor or sexual exploitation for commercial purposes of people. So a lot of times the internet is being used to advertise and market women as escorts, or to engage in prostitution and set up those communications with the potential customers and the meets and the financial transaction of it as well. So that's another area of cybercrime that's seen sort of an uptick recently.
Frank, can you talk a little more about the commercial cybercrime?
Yeah, you see it in the news all the time now. Just recently, Home Depot was affected. 53 million users were affected when they're swiping their card at Home Depot to make a purchase. Their software has been compromised, so now that account information and the email address associated with that customer is somewhere in Eastern Europe or China. And then, you know, right before that, you had Target. Same thing happened. It's pretty large scale, and typically, you know, the FBI gets involved and stuff like that. But for a person, a local citizen, the best thing to do is just keep an eye on your credit account all the time. It should be a constant, you know, a lot of the credit card companies nowadays just give you a credit report on your statement,
right,
just to let you know that there's nothing going on, you get a good credit score, all that. But go to the 3 main creditors just to make sure your credit account's up to date and that there's no false charges, because it can happen pretty quickly, and it's significant to get that off your credit report.
Right.
But as you know, it's nothing of your fault, but these companies, it's tough with all these, you know, again, they usually come out of the Eastern Europe or the Chinese areas where they're hacking into these accounts.
There's nothing you can really do about it. I mean, you're out there using your credit card in the normal course of your life, and it's happened somewhere else, not in your computer stuff, but you still have to deal with the aftermath,
Right,
potentially, of it. So it is important to make sure you watch all your credit scores.
Yeah, that, and just if you go to an ATM, make sure there's no device attached to it. The ATM's got to look normal, stuff like that. I mean, those, you know, those are the skimming cards and stuff like that. That's more localized, but because they have to physically put a device on. But when they get into the software, these large companies, there's really nothing you can do other than to keep an eye on your credit.
Okay.
There's another category of that targets individuals more directly through their own individual devices or the computers, and one of them is called phishing with a PH. And typically that takes the form of maybe an email directly to you or a pop-up while you're using the computer, and it appears to you to be from a trusted account. Maybe it's your bank. You recognize the logo, it's from your bank, and there's something there that says, for instance, maybe they're trying to tell you, oh, we had a data breach. Can you please input this information? And it's sensitive information. It might be your account number or your social security number. And you think that's a trusted site, and you sort of don't look beyond that and put that information in there. And truly, it's not from them at all. And it's somebody who's just now stolen some very sensitive information of yours to then go do perhaps open up their own credit cards in your name or access your accounts in some way. So that's a way that they sort of more directly can try to steal information from your actual computer or device. Also, I think there's one currently going around. I think it's an email that appears to be from FedEx, and it tells you, we tried to deliver a package, no one was there, please go to this link. And you know, for further instructions type thing. And what you're doing oftentimes when you get that type of a communication, when you click on that link, you're allowing malware or spyware to get downloaded into your computer that then is going to go throughout your computer seeking sensitive information to feed back to whoever sent that to you. So that's more of a targeted toward an individual or to a particular device than getting into some of the credit type information from Target or Home Depot.
Just a quick note on her stuff, like those emails that you get from your bank, your bank never asks you for personal information online. You know, it appears you logged in too many times, type in your password, we'll reset it. But if you look at the very top of that email and see where it came from, typically it would say either on the front end or the back end, it has a strange name because it's coming from somewhere else, and then the bank name's in the middle. So it would say, you know, joeschmo.com at ebay.com. So you think it's coming from eBay, but if you see that either end, there's an additional email address on there, that's usually how you can identify those phishing type emails.
Oh, okay. Frankie, you're a forensic computer analyst. What is computer forensics?
It's how we legally get evidence related to any of these crimes that involve electronic devices. We're able to gather evidence legally through, you know, electronic means to you know, support the case and the investigation.
In this day and age, how important is computer forensics?
It's extremely important. I mean, today's day and age, there's almost virtually no crime that does not involve forensics, whether it be cell phone forensics, computer forensics. You get you know, digital cameras, you have digital video systems. There's just every crime nowadays. If somebody goes to rob a convenience store and you get that perpetrator and he has a cell phone on him, well, we would take the cell phone and through the computer forensics part of it, we'd be able to prove that he was at that store on that date and time, and you know, certain other things would help add up to support the case against the perpetrator.
What else can you look for in the computer forensics?
The possibilities are endless. The amount of data that these devices, even something as small as a cell phone, hold is unbelievable. They all have operating systems which, to help speed up the device, whether it be a computer or a cell phone, to help speed it up, it constantly keeps additional information in the background. So if a user deletes a file, whether it be an image or you know, say an image, user deletes an image, that image, we can either retrieve it because it's technically still on that device, depending on the size of the memory, or a system file has captured the contents of that file, so then we can get the file as it was through a system file. So you know, the Windows itself backs itself up constantly. They're called system volume files. We go to the system volume file, so if that file was deleted yesterday, we go to yesterday's system volume file, we can get that file prior to it being deleted, so that we're able to gather all that types of evidence. You get other things where you can then see what the user was doing at the time of the crime, or you know, surrounding the investigation, whether they were Googling certain terms or looking for certain things. If they, you know, say it's a kidnapping case, they were Googling the address, they were Googling certain things they wanted to purchase or how to do it. You see all that type of stuff. I mean, it's amazing how much information these things contain and still hold constantly, even a year later, that we're able to get back to help support the investigation.
In addition, when we don't have the actual device, we can use legal means, whether it's an administrative subpoena or a search warrant, to gather information from the servers. So whether it's the service provider or perhaps it's something like cell tower locations, so we can figure out maybe where someone traveled along when they had that phone, even if we don't ultimately get that phone. If the information is in sort of a third party's hands, we can use legal process to attempt to get that information as well to support a case.
Where do you begin to look?
If the investigation gets to the point where we're doing a search warrant and we need the device, or we try to locate the device, so we go into a residence or a work area, I mean, you're looking at everything. So you're looking at the computers, you're looking at the cell phones, anything that can hold a digital file. So you're talking digital cameras, digital camcorders, laptops, desktops, cell phones, video gaming systems now, because they connect to the internet. So depending on the crime, you want that type of stuff. Cell phones have micro SD cards that are that big that hold 32 gigabytes of data. So the amount of data on that card is unbelievable. You got USB thumb drives, you got portable hard drives. A lot of this stuff, like we've talked about earlier, is very mobile. So you need to grab anything that can hold a digital file. And they're coming out with new stuff every day.
Yeah, and he said virtually, the interesting thing is that virtually every crime now may have something that involves cell phones and information and storage data, which really, I'm sure, has really expanded your workload because it's on virtually every case.
I work on almost virtually every case. In some aspects, I mean, I'm not always the case officer or something like that, but I have a piece of every case, whether it be cell phones, laptops, computers, digital evidence, you know, from security cameras or regular cameras and stuff like that. So yeah, it's grown immensely.
And you, I'm guessing most of the times when you get a device and you have to find out what was in there, most of the individuals that have these devices think that they, by deleting it, can get rid of something. But in actuality, even though something is deleted, in some instances, or is it all instances, you can get what they deleted?
No, not in all instances, but in many, more than enough instances, we get back what we want. See, the computer or device, when it deletes a file, it doesn't really remove the file. It removes the pointer to that file. So the file is typically still there, and then as long as it hasn't been overwritten, because basically the device is saying, okay, this space is now available for you to store something there. So if it doesn't get overwritten, that image or chat or whatever it happens to be is still there. The computer's just saying if you need to save something, this is where it can go. So if the device isn't used often, then it won't get overwritten. So, you know, like text messages, we can text messages back many times, especially with the smarter phones, the iPhones, the Samsung, stuff like that, because that's basically put into a SQLite database. So it's deleting that entry, but not the contents of that entry. And then saying, okay, if you need to put something else in the SQLite database, start here because they're available, but it doesn't always go in sequential order.
And you can build your cases from the deleted, for what the people believe they've deleted, for the purposes of going forward, whatever your case may be, whatever the crime or whatever the violation may have been.
Yeah, that's always the goal, is to support the case and get additional evidence, you know, pertaining to the crime.
Well, I know that you guys have been doing a tremendous job, and I appreciate both of you coming here today and giving us some of your expertise, because this is really the cutting edge sort of crime that's out there that's involved in many of the things that everybody does in the world of prosecution. So that concludes this episode of The Scales of Justice. I'd like to thank Frank and Kristen once again for the great job that they did today, but also the great job that they do every day for us here in Plymouth County. And I want to thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the next episode of The Scales of Justice. Thank you.